Welcome to another edition of the Show Me Hoops podcast. We're the number one basketball podcast for coaches in the state of Missouri. I know we have a lot of players that listen to this too, and this is just some real good advice that I want to share with everybody that I got from the first coaching clinic that I ever went to, and it also kind of piggybacks along what we've been talking about with Coach McFerrin in the last two podcasts that we put up, where we're really talking about a lot of pressure defense and attention to detail and things like that. There's, the things that made Coach Mack so good. So this will kind of fit along those same lines. But the very first coaching clinic that I ever went to, I was the freshman basketball coach at Cape Notre Dame High School in Cape Girardeau, Missouri. They had hired me to be the freshman coach. I was in my last year of college. 21-year-old kid, and head coach said, hey, we've got a chance to go to this coaching clinic in Chicago. It was a Nike coaches clinic where they had a great lineup of speakers. It's the first clinic that I had ever been to, and I remember the first two speakers that came up and talked that night were Jim Calhoun and Mike Krzyzewski. And so it just was incredible, being a 21-year-old coach, just starting out. This is the first time I'd ever been exposed to anything like this. And, I wasn't hearing somebody from, Northwest State, whatever. I was hearing Mike Krzyzewski and Jim Calhoun. The guys, they had just played in the national championship game, and UCONN actually beat Duke that year. It's when they had Rip Hamilton and Khalid El-Amin, and, it was a big upset. Duke was the better team, but UConn did beat them. So Jim Calhoun comes out to talk, and to be honest with you, I was a fan of Coach Calhoun. I thought his teams were always good, but I was really, really looking forward to hearing Mike Krzyzewski talk. And he actually was going to speak at two different sessions that night, so we were going to get to hear him for about 3 hours. So I was really looking forward to that. Had no idea that what Jim Calhoun got up and said that night would impact me the way that it did. And so the lesson there is, if you're paying attention, and you're listening, you never know when you're going to get a good idea from somebody. Now, obviously, it's not hard to get a good idea from Jim Calhoun. But the point being, I was kind of, looking at that session like, I'm going to take some notes, and I'll probably pick up a thing or two. But it's one of the best talks I've ever heard about basketball, to listen to Coach Calhoun that night. And the very first thing he said that I think you can take back to your team right now, especially as practice is about to start. It's middle of October right now. Coach Calhoun said this: there are 100 good ways to play basketball. Okay, like you could be a fast break team that wants to press full court man-to-man. You could be a fast break team that wants a full court zone press. You could be a walk it up the floor, run a very deliberate Princeton-style offense and a pack line defense. There's a lot of good ways to play, and all that I just described, you can win playing any of those styles. There are very, very successful coaches that have played all of those styles. I just talked about Coach McFerrin, who was very deliberate offensive coach, tremendous man-to-man defensive coach. Coach Mack would beat you 42-35, and you felt like you were never in the game. Talked before about my coach, Ronnie Cookson, full court, shoot, holler, and follow, run up and down the floor and shoot it, zone press. They're going to beat you 92-70, and you never feel like you're in the game. But they're both, arguably the two best coaches ever in the state of Missouri to play a completely different style. So that's what Coach Calhoun was saying. He said there's 100 good ways to play, and you're listening to this right now and you're nodding your head like, yeah, David, get to the point. He said you have to figure out what 3 or 4 things are important to you, because you can't be good at everything. And at the time, I was actually working for a coach by the name of Chris Neff. Chris was in his first year as a head coach there at Cape Notre Dame. Tremendous coach, and actually went on to St. Joe Lafayette, went to multiple Final Fours, things like that. Chris is a great coach. But in his first year as a coach, I saw that in Chris, that he was really, just experimenting with exactly what his style was going to be we ran the triangle offense, which is very complex offense. Chicago Bulls were popular at that time, and there was a coach at Southeast Missouri State by the name of Gary Garner that ran the triple post, and he was an expert on it. So with them being right there in Cape Girardeau, Chris had got to be friends with Coach Garner and really took a lot of those triangle principles, and that was what our offense was. But Chris also wanted a fast break, and he wanted to press, and he wanted to, we were trying to be good at too many things, and that's what a lot of young coaches do. So Coach Calhoun was talking about you can only be good at a limited number of things. So figure out what you want to be good at. But this is the kicker. This was the really the money shot of what I wrote down right here. He said, if I walked in your gym today and I watched your team practice today, based off of what you do in practice, would I know what 3 or 4 things are most important to you? And when he said that, I was like, wow. And he said, this is what is important to us at UCONN. And it's not what you say, it's what you emphasize to your players. In other words, you could say, hey, guys, we're going to be a great defensive team this year. We need to play better defense. And I've got a lot of coaching friends who every year they talk to me about, man, I'm going to try to get my kids to guard better. I'm going to try to get my kids to do this, this, and this. And their teams never play good defense. And I guarantee if I walk in and watch them practice, it's because they're not putting time into those drills and concepts and habits that you need to be a good defensive team. And that's what Coach Calhoun was saying. If I walk in your gym and watched you practice, it's not what you say, it's what you emphasize. So if, the first 6 drills of your practice are, defensive-oriented, closeouts, shell drill, one-on-one, help and recover, where you're preaching the same concepts and the same habits over and over and over, emphasizing things, you're probably going to be good at that. Now, we all know there's a limited amount of time in practice, so we can't cover everything. Compare that to like teaching. There are standards in English or math. I don't care who you are as a teacher, you can't master every standard. You can't get to everything. It's the same thing in basketball. You're not going to master full court pressure, half court defense, zone, man, triangle offense, fast break. But if you emphasize certain things to your players and you say, these 3 or 4 things are going to be what we hang our hat on, that's what it's all about in coaching. And if you can get to that point as a coach where you're comfortable and you say, this is how we're going to play, this is what we're going to emphasize, I've got 2 hours of practice every day, this is what I'm going to work on, you're probably going to have a pretty good team. So that was one thing that Coach Calhoun said that, it's really simple, but I would challenge you as a coach, because I did it while he was talking. Write down what 3 or 4 things are important to you. And I talked about this with the Coach Mac podcast. I studied the great programs. What was the constant in the great programs? So for me, number one thing every year, we are going to dominate the glass. That is the most important thing for me. If my basketball team is a great rebounding team, I'm pretty happy as a coach. Because I think it's going to keep you in a lot of games. It's going to win you a lot of games. Number 2 for us was pressure defense. There's a lot of different ways you can pressure, where your point of pickup can be. You can pressure from half court and in. But, we wanted to pressure, and we wanted a full court pressure if we could. Number 3 for us was taking care of the ball. And I always say, if you rebound and take care of the ball, you're going to be in every game because the possessions are going to be pretty even, and it's going to come down to who can shoot better. And again, if you pay attention to point number 2 there and you're playing pretty good pressure defense, you're going to keep them from shooting just tremendous. So you're going to be in every game. We wanted to take care of the ball. Shot selection was huge for us. We really put a premium on taking good shots and taking care of that ball. The year that we led the state in scoring, we actually averaged about 91 points a game and only had 8 turnovers a game. We scored so much because we didn't throw the ball away. And playing at that high rate of speed, they took good shots and didn't throw the ball away. And then number 4 thing for us was run the floor. We wanted, and that goes both ways. Transition offense, transition defense. We want to run both ways. And we called it the race. And what I would say to my kids is win the race. The first 3 steps is where the race is at. As soon as the ball changes possession, you have to win those first 3 steps. So those are the 4 things that I emphasized just from a X's and O's and basketball standpoint. Those 4 things were the things that we really, really, really stressed. I was more, stressing running the floor than I was being a great half-court offensive team. I wanted to be a good half-court offensive team, but I wanted to win transition both ways. That, to me, was more important because a lot of the game is in transition. So those are the things that I stress to my players all the time. And then here's the other idea that Coach Calhoun gave as far as pressure, and we were just talking about Coach McFerrin and pressure defense and the way Coach Mack taught pressure defense. Coach Calhoun said this, and this is a tremendous comment that he made. He said, defense comes down to 3 things. Number 1, who are you? Number 2, who is he? And number 3, where are you? In other words, if I'm really quick and you're really quick and we're full court 80 feet from the basket, I might guard you one way. Or if I'm just medium quickness and you're quicker than me and we're at 80 feet, I might guard you different than I guarded you at 35 feet, So those 3 things, think about that. It's who you are, where you are, and who is he. Those 3 things, if I'm 5'10" and you're 6'6" and I'm guarding you under the goal, I'm going to have to guard you different than I guard you at 60 feet from the basket. So those are all things to think about. Can he shoot? Can he not shoot? Is he quicker than you? Is he not quicker than you? But where he's at on the floor, your pressure can change. Like you might pressure one way in the backcourt and a whole different way in the front court. These are just things to think about. And so that's what I wanted to talk about today. I just want to share good ideas. And as a 21-year-old coach sitting there listening to a Hall of Famer, I was not expecting to take things that really would shape my entire coaching career. Of all the clinics that I've ever been to, that was one of my favorite ones because of the things Coach Calhoun said that night. And I just thought it was really deep and really profound, especially for a young coach, to take those things. And it really helped me to crystallize my coaching philosophy right away and say, hey, what 3 or 4 things are going to be important to me? And because I knew I wanted to be a pressure defensive coach, to hear his tips on how he tried to install pressure and the rules that he gave his kids. Who are you? Who is he? And where are you? I thought those things were tremendous. So, hey, I appreciate all the feedback that we get for this. I talked to a coach in Tennessee the other day, and he was asking, for some advice on one of the podcasts that we gave. He said, hey, this is really good. Do you care to, kind of expand on that a little bit? And so anyway, I talked back and forth with him. But I get a lot of ideas from you guys. And so I appreciate all the feedback. I appreciate you guys, tuning in the way you do. And, I don't do this for me. I just love basketball, and I love talking about basketball. And I enjoy meeting new people and talking to different coaches. I was sitting in a hospitality room 2 nights ago talking to a coach about, something that we said on one of our podcasts. And so, it's just one of those things. I love sharing ideas for basketball. So if you've got one, please, by all means, share it. And then what I'll do is I'll take credit for your idea and act like you never said it. No, I'm just kidding. I'll give you all the credit in the world. So if you got an idea, share it with me. Check out the website, www.justwintoday.com. If you hear something on here or you see something on the website that you like, please share it. And we've got something new on the website right now. We've actually got a debate page where I throw up different basketball topics and we debate about the topic. And you just can... one click of a button, it's like sending a text, and your comment, totally anonymous, will go up on the site, for or against whatever the topic is that day, and it actually keeps score. So, your side either wins or loses. And so, check that out. Check out the website. Thanks for everybody for listening, and, as always, JWT.